Apparently, the 90s and 2000s are the latest phase in people's nostalgia. We got things like flip phones making a small comeback, to people reminiscing about Animorphs and their funky-ass book covers. This type of nostalgia is trending more with people of my generation who were born in the 90s and early 2000s. And it absolutely includes game systems. If you were lucky enough to own a Sega Saturn as a kid, you probably turned out different compared to other gamers. If you want to get a Saturn nowadays, you're already too late. The talk of the town of game consoles in the mid to late 90s were the Nintendo 64 and the up-and-coming PlayStation. One of them was the most revolutionary system of all time, and one of them was the PlayStation, but both consoles were good in their own right. So, what's the deal with the Nintendo 64? Well, dear viewer, that's what today's video is about. I get to talk about the Nintendo 64, what I have for it, and share memories from my younger years. As of this video, the N64 is about 27 years old, so I get to tell you, if you remember the N64 as a kid, you're old! Suffer with me!
Huh? Oh.
The Nintendo 64, a part of the 5th generation of consoles and Nintendo's first 3D console. Ahead of its time in many ways, but stuck in the past in others. As far as I know, this dark gray unit is original since the fantastic colors didn't come until 1999. From a design standpoint, it looks kind of odd with the big hump in the middle. Looks kind of like a modern art toaster. Up front, the N64 tells you loud and clear that up to 4 players can play at one time. If you had 3 other friends or family members to play with, you had plenty of 4-player options to choose from. As a side note, this generation introduced players to the concept of screen cheating. Stick to your own viewport, damn it! The N64 runs its games off of cartridges, which was baffling in the 90s, seeing as the CD was becoming the popular option for game media. A CD could hold much more information than an N64 cartridge, so it's a classic example of Nintendo shooting themselves in the foot. Developers got crafty with data compression towards the end of its life, allowing more speech samples and even full-motion video to be compressed onto a cart. It made those carts more expensive, but they were amazing technological achievements. In front of the cartridge port is this grotesque tumor. Under this phallic object is the memory port. This is where system RAM goes, and it included a 4MB jumper pack needed to run games. I'll talk more about this mushroom later. Out back, we see the standard Nintendo AV port, which used the same cables for 3 console generations. SNES or GameCube AV cables will work with this thing. They're all cross-compatible with each other. It also supports RF, but RF is gross and you'll have no way of getting an RF signal with most modern TVs. Hell, you're lucky if a modern TV has any AV ports! On the bottom is the expansion port of nothingness. It was originally intended for the 64DD, a magnetic disc add-on, but it was never used in the N64's life in North America. The 64DD is a whole other can of worms. I could go in depth about the rare North American prototypes and the elusive Ura Zelda, but you only need to know that it was a commercial failure in Japan. Good luck getting one of those. Sure, the N64 looked funky, but at least the controller was more sensible. Right? What the hell? Is this a controller or a 3-pronged banana? Continuing the trend of Nintendo making silly decisions is the N64 controller. Was it innovative? Yes. Was it also confused? Yes. This controller's claim to fame was the analog stick in the center. This was so revolutionary as you could move in 360 degrees instead of 8 directions. The showcase for this controller was obviously Super Mario 64. You could run, jump, and do other platforming things in a true 3D space with fluid motion. The D-pad on the left prong of this thing was only used in a handful of games, most notably Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. It's not a bad D-pad in all honesty. Now, that's all good and all, but why the hell does this thing have 3 prongs? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. But at the very least, you don't have to use every single button. But Squiddy, you might say, I don't have 3 arms. Yeah, well, I don't have 8 arms since I'm neither a squid nor an octopus. You've had 27 years to adapt to this controller, so you know you only need to hold 2 prongs at one time. Turn the controller around and you'll find a Z button. perfect for pretending to fire a gun in GoldenEye or Perfect Dark. Behind that is a controller expansion port. You put things like the controller pack or the rumble pack in there. More on those in a bit. The controllers came in a large variety of colors, to which I have the standard gray controller. I also have green and red controllers. I love the red one because red's my favorite color. On another side note, I have a Tribute 64 controller, but it's USB only, so I'd need an adapter to use it on real hardware. Even then, it only feels okay. But that's another story. Now we get to the various accessories I have, and this is where things get interesting. First is the controller pack. It's used by many N64 games to save data whenever a cartridge didn't have a battery save. If you didn't have one, you'd either be unable to save in those select games, or would have to write down a lengthy password. Remember password saves? Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to go back to these. I never had a controller pack when I was younger, and I only got one of these at a yard sale for free in the past few years. It's probably the most recent addition to my N64 collection. Then we get to the rumble pack, and this is where things get even more interesting. You put a couple of AAA batteries in here, and now you get vibration and force feedback in supported games. It felt so good to feel rumble in games like Star Fox 64, where your whole controller shook whenever you got hit. It really added to the immersion. This made the N64 the first system to support rumble, which would become a standard feature of every major game console going forward. For the console itself, I have this third-party expansion pack, that mushroom I mentioned earlier. For an unofficial RAM expansion, it works, and I'm able to play Donkey Kong 64 or Majora's Mask. Those are all the accessories I have, so that means we get to play some games. Or at least that was the initial plan. The N64 kept restarting itself for no reason, and it made trying to play a game more irritating. I already documented this issue in a previous video, so go watch that for more. The gist of that video was that the reset button went rogue, and cleaning it solved my problem. Spoiler. Now we'll be able to play some games. With the games I physically own in my collection, I'll briefly go over each game and share my thoughts and memories. My N64 collection has not changed since high school, so my high school years will serve as the cutoff point for this retrospective. Starting in alphabetical order is Banjo-Kazooie from Rare. This game was the pinnacle of 90s 3D collectathon platformers, and it starred everyone's favorite bear and bird duo. A common theme you'll notice in my memories is that I was terrified by many of these games as a kid. These repressed childhood fears keep rearing their ugly head, especially with the sharks in Treasure Trove Cove and that damn bull in Mumbo's Mountain. But I thought the Jinjos were adorable, and the little dance Banjo and Kazooie do when getting a jiggy was fun. Next is Donkey Kong 64, also developed by Rare. If Banjo was the pinnacle of collectathon platformers, then DK64 was overkill. Too many collectibles. I never got to experience this game when I was younger because I didn't even have an expansion pack. And even when I did, I spent more time goofing off in Majora's Mask instead. I think it's a fine game, but I wouldn't blame you if you're turned off by the overabundance of collectibles. Oh god, the collectibles. Here's F-Zero X, made by Nintendo. This game's awesome! It's so fast and has a great challenge to it. The music also kicks ass. I got this game as a late birthday present from my big brother, and this game spent a long time in being shipped to my old house. When I did get this game, I was partially disappointed. I thought he was building me a PC, but still happy nonetheless. I still love this game and prominently display it on my console as a background item in video calls.
It's tail time.
Next up, the internet's favorite lizard in Gex, Enter the Gecko from Crystal Dynamics. This is a remarkably average platformer with an obnoxious gecko voiced by comedian Dana Gould.
Forget about it.
As a kid, I didn't have a damn clue what Gex was saying because all those 90s pop culture references flew right over my head.
It beats the Matterhorn. What are you gonna do?
I still did find some enjoyment in this game as a kid, and didn't get scared by even the spooky levels. I never got far in this game because I didn't have a controller pack, and never wanted to write down the passwords. The passwords.
Hey, I feel like I'm trapped in Boy George's pants. A little tongue now, a lot of tail later.
Here's Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards by Nintendo and HAL Laboratory. A colorful and cutesy 2.5D platformer starring the lovely pink puffball. After I got this game at a yard sale, I was surprised to find that the analog stick wasn't even used in gameplay. I had to use the D-pad. After adjusting to this weird, to me, control scheme, I enjoyed this game. I found the mix and match power-up system to be very fun. I was sold on the concept with the fire sword and the double-bladed electric sword. Darth Maul is still cool, don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Shiver Star blocked me mentally because of the factory levels, mainly the segment where you ride King Dedede and try not to get insta-kill squashed by these hammer robots. I'm also glad I didn't really get into Kirby lore as a kid because oh my god is it so dark. Ant Dude has ruined my childhood. Here's The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask from Nintendo, the follow-up to Ocarina of Time. Time is your biggest enemy, as the moon will destroy the world in 3 days. I was never the biggest Zelda fan, so I never took any of Link's quests seriously, and when I did, I usually died for failing to recognize patterns and fumbled with controls. I spent more time romping around Clocktown and the Zora Cove. I stayed out of Termina Field because enemies lurked around every inch. Even the birds could attack. So if I'm not a Zelda fan, why did I even get this card? Because it's effing gold. Speaking of Ocarina of Time, here it is. This game is regarded as one of the greatest games ever made. Take most of what I said about Majora's Mask and apply it here. I spent more time goofing off in Hyrule than questing. Most of my time was spent in the market as a kid and in Kakariko Village as an adult. Oh, and fishing by the lake. And smashing the rocks in the Goron City. But mainly smashing the rocks in the Goron City. Next up is NBA Showtime.
This is the NBA on NBC.
It's a continuation of the NBA Jam formula and the direct successor to 1997's NBA Hang Time.
Hang time!
I don't remember if I bought this game with my own money or got it as a December gift. I think it was a gift. I had previously played the 2010 NBA Jam reboot on the Wii and loved it. Now you know me. I went through a sports game phase in my gaming life. I've been over this game in one of my previous videos, so what I'll say is this. If you like this game, you'll love the 2010 reboot, and vice versa. Still fun, especially with multiple players.
He swishes it home. With the hesitation move. From short range.
Next up is Pokemon Snap, from Nintendo and HAL Laboratory. It's one of the many Pokemon spin-offs on the system. This one's focused on taking pictures of Pokemon in 3D. Another one of my personal favorites on the system. Getting the best shot of a Pokemon and trying to beat my high scores gives this game great replay value. The interactions you can do to get the perfect shot bring the Pokemon to life and put a smile on my face. Loved this as a kid, still love it as an adult, even if I can't say the same about the main games. You think I'd like new Pokemon Snap? Let me know. Next, Star Fox 64, also from Nintendo. It's a continuation/soft reboot of the Star Fox series and a showcase for the Rumble Pack. This is yet another one of my personal favorites. You use your R-Wing to shoot as many enemy ships down and occasionally go into all-range mode for more freeform flight. I never got up to the Landmaster levels when I was younger, and I completely avoided Aquas because of that giant oyster bioweapon Bakhoon. The Dark was much scarier when I was younger. And now I want bacon. This game was also the site of many frequent duels with my younger brother in the multiplayer mode, which was passable in its time but is rather lackluster nowadays. And I didn't even know about the vehicle select that you could only unlock by getting all medals on both difficulty levels. I only had them unlocked because my brother used a Game Shark to get us there.
I'm no match for you. I admit defeat. Are you gonna listen to that monkey? You're not as stupid as you look! I can't believe I lost to this dumb! Sorry to jet, but I'm in a hurry. It's me, Mario! Hello!
The flagship title from Nintendo, as well as an N64 launch title, a revolutionary 3D platformer. I don't like this one. Let me explain before you all burn me at the stake in the comments section. I respect this game for what it did, but I absolutely hate how slippery Mario is in basically every platforming game up to Galaxy. On top of that, this game horrified me as a wee lad. Not only did Mario's death cry haunt me whenever he fell from a great height, but I was afraid of the Boos and Bowser on the insta-kill vortex in Dire Docks. Now, if I had known about the piano jump scare in the haunted house as a kid, I would have never touched this game ever again. But because I never went there, I still got some enjoyment out of the game. The slide bonus level was always fun. Not one of my favorite games, but I don't actively despise it.
Here we go!
Next on our list, the one that started it all is still one of my favorites. Although it's not the Smash game I sunk the most time into, that would go to Brawl, I would still play this often with my brother. Once upon a time, I was a filthy casual Smash player and loved playing with items on. Even when me and my brother took on the competitive rules come 2017, it was still tons of fun. The more players playing Smash, the merrier. Next is Wave Race 64, made by Guess Who.
Race.
It's a water racing game renowned for its water rendering and physics. I didn't think this would be one of my favorites, but I fell back in love with this game playing it for the video. The water rendering is still impressive to this day, the racing is very good, the music is fantastic, and it has such an upbeat tone. I did enjoy this game as a kid, but I never entered any races and only did the time trials. I guess that's kind of where my appreciation of open-world racing games come from, even if racing games are boring rehashes of previous games. Forza Horizon! One other thing I didn't know until recently is that you can ride the dolphins. It took me until the Nintendo Switch Online trailer for Wave Race in 2022 to figure that out. Maybe I just never played the game enough to justify the hunt to unlock the dolphins.
You're about 9 seconds ahead.
The last game I have is WCW NWO Revenge by THQ and Aki Corporation. It's a wrestling game featuring the World Championship Wrestling organization at its peak. I only remember snippets of this game because it used to belong to my older brother. This is another one of the best 4-player games on the system, even if the controls were goofy. I would love to get a 4-player session going of either this game, WWF No Mercy, or Def Jam Fight for New York. This is from that time where former WWE wrestlers made it big in WCW, and where some WWE wrestlers made their names before WCW folded and got swallowed by WWE. Ugh! That really rolls off the tongue. This is present in the game's roster with Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Sting, Goldberg, DDP, Booker T, and original weirdos like Aki Man, Maya Inca Boy, and Kim Chi. Kim Chi is godlike, by the way. I love the N64. That weird slab with its strange controller was home to a large chunk of my under years. Whether it was being irrationally traumatized by platformers or settling sibling rivalries in Smash, I loved the N64 for what it was, even if I never had access to the newest systems. But you know what? I would never trade away my system and my memories of it. They're inseparable. While I never got to experience all the essential titles in my childhood, like GoldenEye, Mario Party, or Mario Kart, I still had the majority, and it was really all I needed to have a good time growing up. And I can say that the N64 is largely responsible for who I am today. Some silly, autistic nut who loves video games and went to college for it. I mean, hell, I'm wearing a shirt of it right now. There will always be a place in my heart for the N64, and there will always be a reason to turn this thing on again. But it does not play CDs, nor does it have Spyro on it. PlayStation is the superior console, people. Let's go. Yeah, well, that's another story for another time.